These days, current events unfold on a dozen channels. Headlines all seem to be shouting, and good news can be as scarce as a moment to relax. So let's turn down the noise this summer, unplug just a little bit, and head to a shelter from the storms of life. The historic port city of Alpena, located on the sunrise shore of Michigan. Only a few hours drive, but miles away from the weight of the world. Nestled between a vast forest and an endless clear blue bay, where the wonders of nature are as welcoming as the local hospitality. We can explore more than 200 shipwrecks in the largest freshwater sanctuary anywhere. Count the stairs to the top of a lighthouse, or the masts that jet into the harbor sky at moonrise. Let's take a trip to the friendly, picturesque city of Alpena, a haven from the world that's pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening and welcome to Alpena City Council meeting, May 4th, 2015. Call the order, please.
Johnson? Here. Nielsen?
Here.
Nowak?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes from regular session April 20th, 2015 and closed session April 20th, 2015. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes max to address their concerns. This is the only time during a council meeting that you're allowed to address council. If you do so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records.
I know you know me. Angie Skiba, 635 River. I understand we are getting results regarding the lengthy lawsuit about 7 years now with Sheboygan Cement Products / Gildner's and Glovey Corporation. Upon receipt of any funds, number one, does this go into the general fund? Number two, when will they begin to replace the sidewalks at no additional charge to us taxpayers who are already paying the fees? Number three, am I correct that the charges began immediately on our taxes? I spoke to Jeff individually and we're going to talk about that. Number four, how many years do they remain on the tax bills? I thought it was 7. I will check with the office and get it was either 5, 7, or 10, depending how it was set up. I don't know the answer, but I will speak to the office and get that answer. I feel that due to the recent litigation, it is a conflict of interest to allow Gildner's to pour any more inferior concrete with any future sidewalks to be replaced. I know I personally do not want them pouring mine when it's done, and I want to be home when it's being done to know that that is taking place. For a repeat problem, I don't want it to be poured for a repeat problem, and it needs to be sealed as well. I am questioning if the discussion and vote from the last meeting should be revisited with the stipulation that Bedrock not be allowed to use Gildner's concrete. They poured their concrete last summer, even though we were in the midst of unsettled litigation with them. So I have concerns about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see those the sidewalk issue on the agenda either. It was going to be, and I don't know if it's addressed today or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. You're preparing something that...
I will, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda for today, but
Okay.
they're just, I mean, I could quickly update you just in the sense that there is 2 issues that still remain pending on remand from the Court of Appeals. And those should be completed within another week or 2. And so, without those being completed, it would be hard to say this is exactly what's going to happen next.
Okay.
So that, you know, those 2 should be completed within a week or 2. It's really not so much as the city's issue as it is between Sheboygan Cement and Glovey. The court has directed what should be done, and the court will do that in default of them agreeing on the number. And they're trying to actively agree on the number. That's the status of that. And then once that's done, there'll be basically, that'll be the final ruling, and then we'll move from there in terms of enforcement of the judgment.
Okay. So it might be several weeks before you're prepared to, because there would be, to put the whole thing together.
Correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. My name is Kristen Mishak. I do not live in the city of Alpena, but I own a business in the city. I own Shallot Service, located at 326 Long Lake Avenue. 4 years ago, my husband Steve and I purchased that business from my parents. They had owned and operated it for 40 years, made it a very successful business. Now my husband and I are proud to own it, carry on the tradition in the family. We are looking to consider possibly investing a substantial amount of money into the business to remodel, possibly update and do a few things, because we feel it's important for our customers that they have a nice community store in their neighborhood. We serve, the majority of our customers come from the north side. So we have started to look at planning our remodel and what we would like to do for our business. And we have a concern about the area in which we are in and the condition of some of the homes in the neighborhoods on the north side. And specifically, the burned homes that are continuing to stand in the city that are just either burned and standing, or they are burned and boarded up and standing, or they're burned and the windows are broken, the houses are abandoned and they're still standing. We feel that it brings our property values down. It is not good for us to have customers traveling to the north side to visit our business and having to drive past homes that look that way. There are many abandoned homes on the north side, but specifically the burned homes are the ones that I am really concerned about, and the fact that the city allows them to just stand and nothing happens. There are also homes that have stickers on them that say that the home is uninhabitable for whatever reason. I'm happy with the revitalization that Alpena is going through. I would like to see that revitalization go across the bridges and happen on the north side as well, so that we can continue to invest in our business and make sure that it's successful for the next generation. We're so happy that the brewery has decided to establish its business on the north side. They're basically right across the street from us. That makes us so happy. But again, they will have customers traveling through the north side and around the north side. And I'm just wondering if a discussion can start, or if something can happen about possibly finding money, either grant money or budgeted money. I really don't know how it could work. I'd be more than happy to volunteer and help in any way I can to bring some attention to the condition of the homes on the north side so we can improve.
Well, you just did. And Don loves it when I do this, and honestly, he does. You're gonna, really, you're gonna contact Don Gilmet during regular business hours if you haven't already, and discuss some of his own, if you have. And we'll get with him as well to put a plan together and see what the deal is. But
great.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, the consent agenda this evening. A is bills to be allowed in the amount of $346,578.19. And B is the approval of resolution number 2015-01B, a resolution for MDOT Category A grant.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. No presentations. We have 2 announcements this evening. A is the reminder that May 5th, tomorrow, is 2015 is a special election. Only one thing on the ballot, and that is Proposal 1. Do you have anything else to offer?
No, 7 a.m., the poll's open.
Until 8?
8 p.m.
Yeah.
then close.
Thank you. B is announcement for intergovernmental meeting at the Ossineke Township Hall on May 7th, 2015 at 7 p.m. Next, I have a mayoral proclamation this evening. Whereas the DARE mission and vision are teaching students good decision-making skills to help them lead safe and healthy lives in a world in which students everywhere are empowered to respect others and choose to lead lives free from violent substance abuse and other dangerous behaviors. And whereas 2012 data shows that there are over 10,000 active DARE programs in America, reaching 72% of U.S. school districts. And whereas the DARE program was introduced to Alpena by Jim Marquardt in 1989 and has reached well over 10,000 local students. And whereas the DARE curriculum is being taught to the fifth grade class in every public, charter, and parochial school in the county in 2014 and 15. And whereas it is my distinct pleasure to publicly recognize the only active father-son DARE officer team teaching the curriculum in the country for their combined 31 years of teaching the values of the DARE program to our local youth, Deputy Jim Marquardt of the Alpena County Sheriff's Office and Officer Tim Marquardt of the Alpena Police Department. And whereas the local DARE program is governed by a volunteer board of directors comprised of local leaders, law enforcement, business owners, and supportive community members, and relies on the grants, fundraisers, and personal contributions for funding. And whereas the local DARE board will be hosting its annual bowl-a-thon for the graduating DARE students on Friday, May 8th, and a celebrity basketball game against the Detroit Lions alumni team on May 15th at the Thunder Bay Junior High School. Now therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim May 2015 as DARE Recognition Month in the city of Alpena and call on all Alpena area residents to support your local DARE program in the home, in your schools, and in our community. And I have the 2 officers mentioned in the proclamation and some of our board members are with us tonight if you guys come up. And it is quite an honor to recognize these 2 officers for their dedication to the DARE program and the board as a whole. Thank you, gentlemen. That's great. I appreciate that. Okay, our report of officers, appointment of Theodore Johnson as Assistant City Attorney.
This is my formal request for council to consider the retired Judge Theodore Johnson as the Assistant City Attorney. As all of you know, Dylan Wallace most recently served in that position, but in November of last year, he struck out on his own and started his own law office and resigned his position as Assistant City Attorney. It has been unfilled since then, and this is my request that you consider Theodore Johnson for the position. The charter does not specifically call for an assistant city attorney position. It only calls for the appointment of a city attorney, but historically, over the course of many, many years, council has always considered the city attorney's request to have an assistant city attorney, and it's pretty much been filled, well, by various people over the years. Keith Wallace was the assistant city attorney. Judge LaCrosse was assistant city attorney at one time. I was assistant city attorney. Dylan Wallace was. Nancy Ward was. I think Russ Reinert may have served in the position for a while. So it's always been filled. Obviously, having an assistant city attorney is not only valuable to myself, but to the city as well. And so I'm asking that you consider this request. There'll probably be at least someone who will question whether Cindy should participate in the vote because it is her husband, and council policy would dictate that she should abstain from voting, but technically council has to, she has to make a request to abstain, and then you have to vote on whether it's a legitimate abstention. My position would be that it is a legitimate abstention. There might also be some question about whether there would be some direct remuneration to Mr. Johnson if he accepted the position. The way that the city attorney position is paid has always been the same, which is city attorney draws a biweekly salary. And so the appointment is not to Isaacson, Wallace, and Pfeiffer. It was not to Isaacson, Wallace, and LaCrosse. It wasn't to Isaacson, Wallace, Reinert, and LaCrosse. It's not to the firm itself. It's to the individual. And Mr. Johnson's salary is paid by the law firm, so there's no direct remuneration that he would be receiving by being appointed to the position, and that's been consistent with everybody else. So same way when I was assistant city attorney, I didn't receive any direct remuneration from the city. And nobody ever has that's been in that position. So I don't see any legal or practical reason why council shouldn't consider it. And I think he's an asset, will be an asset to the city. And so I think it makes sense for council to appoint him in that position.
You would be next.
And I make a formal request to recuse myself from this vote.
Move we allow Councilwoman Johnson to abstain from the vote.
Second.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora? Nielsen?
Yes.
Mr. Nowak, you were going to say something?
No,
Okay. Oh,
Sean beat me to the punch.
oh, okay, I thought I was interrupting you. I don't know if there's any discussion. Judge Johnson would be a great asset to the city as well, with his experience and what he can do for Bill, so
Oh, yeah.
I don't have any issue with it whatsoever.
No apprehension.
Not at all, no questions. I think it would be a good asset. I mean, we definitely have the work, unfortunately, but we definitely could use that here as well, so.
Entertain a motion then.
I move we appoint Theodore Johnson to the Assistant City Attorney position.
Second.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Congratulations, Judge Johnson.
At the overview of some of the information I gave you in my memo on April 30th. The main operating budget of the city is the general fund. Within that fund are the departments that perform the administrative, public safety, and public work services for the city. The city has a major street fund and a local street fund that takes care of all the road construction, repairs, street sweeping, and snow removal in the city. The state of Michigan does reimburse us for some of our work on the major streets. The city also has a water and sewer fund that they provide utility services, and the utility services are not operated with property tax revenue. Those are with water and sewer service fees. Sometimes people think they're with our tax revenue, and they're not. There are several other smaller funds that are responsible for operating, such as the marina, the building officials department, and capital projects on our buildings. The forecasted fund balance at the end of the current fiscal year is $2,553,949, or 27.8% of expenditures. This compares to the 13-14 fund balance of $2,984,398, or 32.4%. The 15-16 fund balance is projected to be $2,093,171, or 19.4%. Because the city is a service organization, the general fund's largest expense is salaries and benefits for the 78 employees that we have. The most expensive benefits are health insurance and the pension plan. Current negotiations with 4 of the 5 unions are not complete, and therefore changes in wages are not known at this time. For budgeting purposes, a 2% wage increase was included for all employees. Employees will be paying 17.5% of the healthcare premiums beginning July 1 of 15 and 20% beginning July 1 of 16. Over the past several years, we replaced some of the more expensive healthcare options with less expensive ones that still offer good coverage but higher co-pays and deductibles. In 15-16, the city's portion of health insurance will cost over $826,000. In 2002, the pension plan had over $30 million in assets and was funded at slightly over 135%. The major growth of assets is basically in the return on our investments. When the economy took a turn for the worse in 2008, our funding level fell from a high of 136.2 to 86.7%, and that was over 13 years. In 15-16, the city's contribution to the pension system will be over $738,000 compared to 14-15 when it was $679,000, which is still a substantial amount of money. Changes have been made in order to keep the system solvent as well as to be manageable for the city's share of the contributions. I'm going to jump down a little bit. Rising costs and loss of revenue have been challenging and forced us to continue to make budget cuts. But there have been many positive accomplishments. Of note is the grant section in the budget that provides citizens a historical look at the grants that the city has been awarded and the projects that were able to be completed with them. And that begins on page 127. Service groups and volunteers have helped the city with park improvements and safety equipment. The new water tank and the bridge to the wildlife sanctuary are the most current example. The Clay Trust also gave generously to the city several years ago for park improvements and tree planting. On pages 2 through 6 of the budget, there's a list of all the capital improvement plans for the 15-16 fiscal year. The column to the right shows what actually made it into the budget. So if you want to look at what we hope to get and what we actually were able to put in the budget, pages 2 through 6 of the budget. For the entire 6-year capital project plan, go all the way to the back of the budget, and the citizens can do that online too. Hunt, Target, the Huron Humane Society, the Wildlife Sanctuary, MACNY, and the Brand Alliance have all come before the council and requested funds. And Greg's going to touch on that a little bit later. And I'd also want the citizens to know that they can find the budget online at www.alpena.mi.us or come into our office, the clerk treasurer's office, if you'd like to look at anything. I'd like to emphasize also to the citizens that our budget document also includes historical information such as poverty exemptions, home foreclosures, annual water and sewer usage, millage rates, and taxable property values. So there's a lot of other information in there that gives you a good historical look at how the city is performing. The Downtown Development Authority is also in our budget, and they can be found on pages 97 through 101. And there's a very good narrative outlining their current and future plans, if anybody's wondering. I know they're always busy, but that's their plans for the future too. There will be a public hearing on our budget on May 18th, so citizens can comment on that. And Greg wanted to say a few words.
I wrote all this out and then realized that Karen covered most of it, so, or a big chunk of it, so it will be shorter than it was planned. So that'll make everybody happy. But once again, as you go through the budget, you'll notice that it is a deficit budget. As Karen pointed out, our fund balance will be tapped again in order to balance the budget. However, it's still a healthy fund balance and not all is doom and gloom. We can be somewhat at least optimistic over the fact that it looks like, and I will emphasize looks like, the long-term decline in property values has perhaps bottomed out, as we've seen a slight uptick in those values, primarily in the residential sector, a little bit in the commercial, and I believe industrial was basically flat. The question is this a trend upward, or is it simply a blip and we go back down? Hopefully, and our hope is that it is a trend rather than a blip. Mm-hmm. The economic activity within this city is also on the upswing, with the new brewery, the hotel downtown, and other projects that are being discussed. And this all bodes well over the long term. However, as we do these, we tend to continue continue to receive requests for tax incentives, economic incentives for the projects, and those are things that we're gonna have to really take a very close look at. Because we are, certainly want to see the increase in tax base and revenue, and that can, of course, be offset over a period of anywhere from perhaps 5 to 10 years by the various incentives that may be offered, whether they be tax abatements or even with the use of brownfield. They all have a good purpose. I think we just need to look at all of those more closely, especially because of things such as personal property tax reform, and that's one of the unknowns. I did go to some MML sessions on it. Many city managers across the state have questioned the statement that we're going to be 100% reimbursed for any lost personal property tax revenue. After listening to people from Treasury, I'm more convinced than ever that it's not going to be 100%, because how they define full reimbursement and how most of us look at full reimbursement are two different things. I do feel we'll probably get at least 90, and it could be more, but they're still working through all the formulas and everything, and so that is an unknown. And how that's gonna play out is something we are gonna have to see. And if it is less than 100%, obviously it will have an impact on our revenues and our budgets. So that is one of the unknowns that's still out there. The other is road and street funding. Obviously, Proposal 1 is being voted on tomorrow. And whether it is Proposal 1 if it passes, or some other solution, assuming the legislature has one and comes up with one, if Proposal 1 doesn't pass, it is going to impact us. Obviously, if we get increases in street funding, either through Proposal 1 or some other set of state laws that go into place, that is beneficial. One, it certainly helps us with our road maintenance and upgrades, and as all communities, we certainly have areas where we could, our roads need upgrading. However, I will also say, in talking with various people from around the state who have been here, is that most have commended us very highly on the condition of our streets within the city of Alpena in comparison to even their own or others that they've been in. But that still doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. So that's a positive. Plus, if we do get additional funding for streets, that can help the general fund, because right now we are subsidizing the local street fund with general fund dollars. So if that can be reduced, that puts more money into the general fund for other uses. So that is something obviously we're going to watch. The other is before they came up with this grand compromise that threw the decision-making onto the voters, there was a proposal out there to simply make all the taxes on gasoline, on fuel, to go strictly towards roads. Unfortunately, that's not the way the funding is set up under our Constitution. A portion of that does go to local communities if the Proposal 1 doesn't pass and it goes on, and I'm hoping that is indeed the case. Because if they do not do that, and they do eliminate funding that presently goes to schools and local governments and don't replace it, again, that's going to have a negative impact. And that's the one thing Karen and I have talked about. It seems like every time we take 1 or 2 strides forwards, there seems to be a couple that set us back. The amount of money, the additional funding we have to put into pensions. Even though we had a good year on investments, it wasn't enough to compensate, and we still have that. And the amount of it was unexpected. We were hoping for much less, so that has an impact. Just a couple other things that I'd like to mention, that in the budget, we have made some changes within the administrative ranks. We did some job reclassifications, 2 in particular. The one you're aware of the creation of the Deputy Fire Chief Fire Marshal, Bob Adrian, who is here tonight. And that's on that 5-year trial basis, and optimistic that it will be a permanent position ultimately. But that is one. The other is, we still have a building inspector listed in the salary schedule for admin. However, it will not be filled. The current building inspector, Mike Kolashevsky, is being, in essence, promoted to a new position called assistant building official. And the reason for that is, number one, it begins to prepare us for the future by having two individuals who are qualified as building officials to be able to handle that position. One, whether our current one, Don, is either on vacation and Mike does a lot of that now, but it even makes him more prepared, or if he was out ill for any length of time. And of course, ultimately, Don will be looking, maybe sooner rather than later, we don't know, over towards retirement. And what we're doing is preparing for that succession as well. The other thing it does is Mike has, for a number of years, done a lot of the maintenance, especially on this building, which has saved the city literally thousands of dollars. Rather than always calling out for a contractor to come in, Mike has been able to take care of it. He's been here at all hours when things have gone wrong to come in and take care of things. He has been somewhat involved in the other two buildings, public safety and DPW, but to a much lesser degree, much of that falling to Rich Sullinger, city engineer. However, Rich has more than enough on his plate right now, and has for a number of years. And what we felt was making Mike responsible for that, or this position of assistant building official in charge, would, one, consolidate that responsibility into one person, rather than Mike and Rich, and sometimes one is doing something and just naturally doesn't always know what the other, and it can create some issues. So it focuses it all into one position. Now, there's certainly going to be a transition, especially on some of the projects we're doing at public safety, and Rich has been very supportive, and the entire engineering department, and they will work with Mike as we have projects in terms of bidding, in terms of getting documents together and so forth. But I think it will work much more smoothly. It'll be an expansion of what he's already been doing for a number of years, and I think the overall, yes, there's an increase in his pay, which I think is well-deserved for what his work assignments have been, but this will expand them a bit more. He will still continue to do all the rental inspections under the rental inspection program, and then along with assisting Don in as he has been, but hopefully in an even more expanded role, as the assistant building official. Don will be working with Mike in terms of what classes, training through which department is that, licensing and?
Yeah, through Laura for the registration for building inspector, building official.
Right. So he'll be taking those classes beyond the ones he normally takes now to maintain his building inspector certification. And so then he will become certified as not only a building official, but also plan review.
And a building inspector, all three, just like I have.
So that will be going on here during the course of the next year. So that's those are two changes which we think are beneficial. We have lost staff over the years in admin. Everybody has been taking on extra duties from the top right on down. And this is one consolidation that we think will benefit in terms of the distribution of the workload and also in preparing us for the future. I just want to mention, Karen, in her report, had that in the budget is the funding for Hunt, which is a slight increase, plus we are providing an officer as well. The Humane Society and Target, those are the same. However, we have two new ones, MACNY, which had to do with the project, I can't remember what it's called, but the tour that will occur on Columbus Day weekend. 5,000, and then the CVB with the branding. Now, the one thing I would recommend with Target for the last several years, we have had a service agreement which outlined the responsibilities of parties and what we would expect for the money that they receive. Is that staff prepare similar documents for both MACNY and the CVB for their funding. And primarily, at least from my perspective, is to ensure that the dollars that we're giving them are spent on projects, programming, whatever it may be, that either are occurring within the city or directly benefit the city. Because obviously this, both of these could be beyond the city, but we want to focus our dollars, since they are ours, on things that will benefit the city. And we can do that through a service agreement, very much like we do in Target. So those we will be preparing here over the next month or so, and then getting those to council to approve before July 1st, along with the new Target agreement as well. Let's see, the other item, the last one I want to, which is indeed a challenge, is workers' compensation insurance premium. This was one which actually we found out really very late in the budget, almost basically after we were done, that our premiums were increasing from $99,390 for the year to this coming fiscal year to $138,811, almost 40% increase, just a fraction under. The modifier, which they tell you should be 1 or below, ours went from 1.22 to 1.47. And for us, that's really not a sustainable trend. We do have a safety and health compliance team that is basically like a safety committee that is citywide, has representatives from police, fire, DPW, clerical, admin, and that I have charged and asked by August 31st to provide a report and recommendations on how we can improve the health and safety of our workers. Because from my perspective, that's certainly the safety of our workers is very important for their own well-being, but also for us to be able to efficiently provide services to our taxpayers, who are the direct beneficiaries of our services, that we do that in the most efficient manner, and that is that we do it safely and we do not have people off for any extended period. We know there are going to be accidents. Those are inevitable, but I think the number and the length we can work on. And so I asked the committee, I said, this is a very high priority of mine, and I would like to see that report and recommendations by August 31st, so then I can sit down with staff, determine then how we can begin to implement those. Now, some things we've already done. I'll just mention one. In the fire department, we have budgeted for a power cot. Now, initially, we had budgeted for 2. We only have 1 in there. But those are things that will help with the lifting of patients. And we're finding that simply the weight of lifting and that has gone up over the years, and that creates more of a strain on our firefighter paramedics. So this is one thing that we're doing. Some of it is equipment that we can probably over time purchase that will help reduce these. So with those, that's basically my comments. Overall, I think I want to thank all the staff and the departments, everybody who spent a lot of time in putting the budget together. Even though, again, it is a deficit budget, we feel we are heading still in many ways in the right direction. The staff and Karen especially have done an excellent job each year of controlling costs, and what we usually find is what we have projected as the deficit or what we looked at in a budget at the proposal, in the end, we're usually better. And sometimes considerably better than what was projected. And that's really the work of all the departments and the employees who help to control those costs and look for, additional revenue sources, whoever they may be. So, thank you.
Wow. I think we should take a break or something.
Just thinking, that was the short version of my.
I actually had a lot of questions. Well, not, I wouldn't say a lot, but several questions about the workers' comp. But you answered a couple of them, and rather than turn it into a safety meeting, I'll just wait and see what the departments come up with, because that's a bit alarming. But we were all at the CIP, so we know what the fire department has started to do with some of their issues. But yeah, that was one of the bigger issues I had. And I guess just to start off a little bit with, to touch on a couple of the things that Greg mentioned was, and in particularly the branding alliance, because that's something particularly new for the city to put funds towards. Although I've been a huge supporter of the branding effort since their start, even though I haven't had a lot of direct contact with them. At first, when Mary Beth came, I was a bit apprehensive about saying, okay, well, let's give the branding team $5,000 of the city money, and then we would have to wonder, I guess, at certain points whether what they were doing with it had a direct impact on the city. And I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but that's how I initially felt. Over the course of the last several weeks, and I've talked to Rich just briefly and Greg about, you know, different ideas as far as putting that fund in like the Parks Fund and using it kind of like Rich does for the Adopt a Park, where somebody could come and give the idea, and it's approved, you know, and that money would be there for them. But to be honest with you, I've kind of really switched gears since then, only because after having several discussions, the branding effort are the ones that went to the classes, they got the professional instruction, they kind of know what they're doing, and nothing against Rich, but he may or may not be as closely involved with the branding effort as they are. And he's got plenty of other things to deal with, and so I've kind of switched gears, and I'm a lot more comfortable with that than I was before. And I may or may not have mentioned it to you guys, so I just wanted to make sure you were kind of clear as to where I stood with that. I'm pretty comfortable with that, and then I certainly appreciate what Greg had said about the
Scope of service.
the having them draft up the. Could certainly revisit it again next year if anybody's got issues with how they go.
The one thing I failed to mention, I believe, Karen, you said that basically that's coming out of community promotions, is it? Those
I
two
believe
funds?
so.
So it's basically funds that we have used in other ways, so it's not really adding additional funds to our budget.
We replaced the visioning and goals
Yeah.
that we normally cost about 10,000. We just put those two projects in instead of that.
Okay.
So we're kind of just reallocating the
Great.
dollars,
Great.
is what we've done.
Okay. So with that, I certainly appreciate everything that was put together for us, and pretty much understand where everything has gone. I had a couple of very simple questions that generally residents will ask me, and so as far as this budget goes, where, for instance, I didn't get to a part that, is it specifically, do we have a plan as far as lawn and leaf pickup, or is that in the budget for the same amount next year as this year?
I think we did, or did we include one
Yeah.
more?
No, there's a fall and spring pickup
For
bag material, and then
5.
5 pickups, May, June, August, October, November, for curbside brush pickup.
Oh, for curbside brush?
Right.
Those, actually, there was a news release that went out today that listed the future dates for that activity.
Okay. You have to forgive me for not reading it.
The reason
A lot to
we,
read.
of course, have 5 brush pickups, only the bag, is because people can bring their bags to the DPW facility anytime during the day between, 7:30 and 3, I think, and then one Saturday a month. Whereas the brush, of course, we no longer allow because of problems we've had to bring brush to the site. That's why we have 5 of those.
Okay.
So those are still in the budget as they were last year. And that's-
Were there 5 last year?
I believe we did 5 last year as well, on the brush bin.
We had the same
Where's the
amount
original
budgeted.
Okay.
Council originally set it up for 4 with an optional 5th one in August. We just went ahead and did the optional 5th one. So
Okay.
we did do all 5 last year, and we just plan on doing all 5 this year as well.
Okay, I appreciate it.
That's on page 83 of the budget in the DPW monthly pickups.
Yeah, I didn't. like I
It's
said,
hard to-
Yeah, I didn't, I
There's a
certainly
lot of
did
that.
page for page, but I,
Yeah.
you know, everybody should go on. But I will before our next meeting, but I was looking to highlight that for sure. And then I'll open it up to anything else anybody else has in the discussion.
Just a couple questions and a couple comments. Karen, with we have a handful of loan payments and tax abatements are set to expire in the next couple of years. Is that going to make any real impact, you think, or is that going to be relatively?
I don't think it will make a big impact. It certainly will be great, it'll be welcome. However, personal property tax, we still don't know if we're gonna get 80%, 90%, so maybe it will just help make up for that. Our premium went up on our workers' comp, I think 30 or 40,000. So it's, like I said, we take a step forward for that, and then we'll take a step back on something else.
And Greg talked about, making some steps toward employee safety, but is that workman's comp premium strictly based on claims, or is there other factors involved with
Experience,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
And the experience of the claims, what we pay, how much we become responsible for.
So if we reduce the amount of claims, eventually that
And
would come down.
the more serious the claim, ones that, extend over longer periods, have more expense, those make our experience that much worse. So it's not just the number, but it's also the type of claim.
And the modifier, when I gave you that chart, the modifier ideally should be under 1. And if you'll notice, I think 1 year out of 10, it was under 1. And that was 0.92 or something.
So we can help ourselves a little bit there.
Yes.
And that's our hope with this committee, which we had started. A few people on it have already attended a workshop on worker safety and programs, and it's being held, I think it's later this month, at ACC. And there are several others on the committee that are going to it here. So those who had gone to it before said it was very good, and so we're having the others go. So that's a start, and then they can begin really to work in earnest.
It's good that we at least have an expense we can do something about.
We hope so.
And Karen, if I don't ask this in a way that makes sense, just holler, but our council policy is at the end of the year, if the fund balance is over a certain percentage, which I think is over 18?
Over 20.
Over 20, okay, that we should look out to basically spending the difference, okay? When we enter into a year that's a deficit budget, where we plan on taking some of that fund balance into the next year, how do you reconcile that policy? Do we count it, that percentage before or after we allocate it into the next year?
After. What we try to do is say, this is what we're going to end up with. And it's after we've taken everything we need from fund balance. We came to you, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3, and said, we're going to have to keep it high because of the personal property tax. I mean, we could have lost $600,000 or $700,000. So we were very concerned about that. And so that's why we're being very conservative and careful with keeping it above the 20%, only because of that. But as you see, it's coming down for the next projection. But we try to, again, stay above it. But in your fund balance policy, did you notice too, once it gets above 20, then we have a list of priorities that, yep.
I'm just having a hard time figuring because it's, right now it's 27.8. So do we use that number, or do we use the number 27.8 minus whatever we're trying to push into the next year?
No, because it's after we've taken our deficit from the budget, the fund balance. This is what we're gonna.
The deep drops in property values, which have affected our property tax revenue, that we really needed to keep that high fund balance because we were gonna see a drop. And as was shown, hopefully we will come in better, as we always seem to do. But if we follow what is projected, we will be at below 20% at the end of this upcoming fiscal year. That is June 30th of 2016. So our recommendation always been is don't touch and try to spend down that fund balance. If we were in very stable times, and I remember when I was sitting out there as staff, that did come up, and there was increased spending on projects or other things because we had a very high fund balance back in the early 2000s, and things were quite stable, and so it made sense. It didn't make sense just to hang on to this money. But I think right now it would be prudent to hang on to that fund balance.
Well, it seems like the spirit of that is it's communities don't sit on money instead of reinvesting it in the community. Then it's not really an issue for us to go ahead and bypass that policy and kind of a better safe than sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I
strategy.
hope that we're not bypassing it. In other words, we came and said, this is why we want to keep it high. I think we should revisit it if it continues to stay high, but it's scary to spend that down, and we do not have it then for the shaky times right now, still with the state not telling us how they're going to reimburse us for personal property tax.
Well, and I know we always appreciate that you come in, at a higher fund balance than we project, but that's not something you should count on.
Right.
I just wanted to throw a couple of things out there. I know you guys are aware, but, I hope people in the community understand that, we haven't been able to make progress in this community without grants, without staff finding other piles of money, without community collaboration, like what we're doing at the duck park that was basically a private citizen. So, certainly I've always appreciated that the staff has been able to help build our community on somebody else's dollar, so to speak. So, and a lot of those projects, we contribute to, a lot of them we don't. And that's just a credit to the people that work here to go find those opportunities, outside of the budget to keep moving our community forward. So we appreciate that. I certainly agree with Greg's assessment that MACNY and the branding and CVB probably best be served to have a scopes of service agreement. Yeah, and I think that's worked really well with Target. We've always invested in industry and the recruitment through Target. And I'm happy to see us try to make a commitment to invest in tourism and arts and culture. And their money spends the same. So I appreciate that inclusion in there as well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, just a couple of questions, if I may, and so on. One of the questions I had is, with all the workers' comp the increases and so on, do we have like a percentage where the operating expenses of the city had increased? What percentage it is? Is it 3.5? Is it 4? Is it 10?
It's approximately 4 if I take out capital and take out our debt payments. And then we have a large federal grant right now, I think for next year. So that kind of distorts those expenses, making them look much higher than this year.
Okay.
But there's revenue on the other end of that too. So if I take out those one time, the operating expenses went up about 4%. Most of that's salary,
Okay.
retirement, pension, the things I had mentioned.
Okay.
Gasoline goes up and down, utilities are going up and down. Those are hard to budget, but we try to watch the trend on those.
Just a couple other comments too of things that I've discovered within the budget too, because one of the I wouldn't say it's really been an issue, but frustrations I think for all of us over the years is that we have a lot of needs within the city, and we've been trying to find ways to fund all the capital programs and all the capital needs that we have. It looks like we've gotten that to around 70.7% of the requested capital improvements have been funded in this budget, compared to 65.6% last year, and the average seems to be less than that, right around 60 or less. I mean, so those are a credit to all the work that all the department heads have done over the years of really watching expenses and so on, and us being able to use some of that money and put it back into some of these improvements that aren't fringe but necessary now as we're moving forward with capital, with equipment and so on.
And I don't, I mean, just to touch on this policy again, because I'm aware of the policy as well, but we did, I remember kind of waiving that, if you will. I mean, that doesn't take any particular action every budget year, does it, or should it, or?
I think if we get to the point where we finally find out on personal property taxes where that's going to take us, then we can look and say, we're going to be reimbursed 100%, no doubt, so we can start coming down to 20%.
Okay, but otherwise you don't need any particular action to waive the policy?
Not if you're going to approve the budget and know about fund balance.
It's one and the same then? Okay, that's understandable. How often do we, because time to time, I mean, I guess expenses come up that are either a really great project that we didn't expect to come, or it's an emergency project that we didn't expect to come. I've seen both of them come and go. do we ever, and if we sit and we decide, okay, we're going to fund that during the middle of the year, say, how often does that ever come out of what's left of the fund balance? Or is it normally a lot of times we had money that we saved because we didn't spend it all on this project or that one, and we find it somewhere else in the budget? How often would you say, is it fairly common, or does it?
Both. The guys do real good sometimes with their capital, and something went out to bid and it came in quite a bit less, and you've seen them come and say, now we can get this with that extra money.
Right.
And a good example too of something I don't think we budgeted for was when we bought the beach motel. That was right in the middle of, I think, of the budget year. So we figured out how to get that. I think we borrowed from the equipment fund on that one. So
it doesn't always come from the fund balance? Because if the fund balance, we don't want it to go below 10, obviously, and it hasn't even approached that since I've been here, but if it's up around 27 and we're mid-budget year, and we can still pull out of that as a capital project.
We'll come to you and ask if you feel comfortable doing that. That's why you don't want to ever get too low, where you just don't have any wiggle room.
Things are going to come up.
Yeah.
And I think one other good example where just the way bids have come in and so forth is the parking lots we did downtown on Lockwood. We had budgeted to do one, but the prices came in where we could do both of them. And I don't remember if we had to take a few extra dollars and pull from some others, but it was still, by being able to do well on bidding and other things, we've often been able to do extra projects in a year. But sometimes it is necessary to pull them out of fund balance, especially sometimes if they're emergencies and totally unexpected. There may be nowhere else to take it from.
And unfortunately, it works the opposite way too, where we've had one capital project has had overruns.
Yes.
We've had to cut a different project because of it.
Right.
Instead of going to fund balance and saying, we need that extra money, we'll cut a different project.
The other question I had on that as well, and I believe I know the answer, but with the capital projects that aren't funded this year, do they automatically go on and are reproposed for the following year, Greg? How does that work?
Yeah, we always have projects.
I know we do.
I mean, they're all priority, but we also know we only have so many dollars. So yes, they get pushed back a year, and some projects get pushed back year after year after year. I have a pet project that I won't name, but I think everybody out there knows what it is, that I said before I leave, I am going to have it within a budget and actually see it occur. Of course, that depends how soon I'm still here, how long I'm still here, I guess. But, I mean, we know there are projects that always, that may not. But the goal and the intent is that it doesn't get pushed back forever, especially priority ones that are dealing with the main things of, water, sewer, streets, our parks, major types of projects. We know eventually, the longer they go, all it does is add to the cost, because there's going to be more to fix, and prices generally do not go down, though we have seen that over the last few years, but that's not the normal trend. So, but that's what happens generally within the CIP. And for some reason, and I've worked hard to, and I think staff does a much better job now. It used to be, if you looked at a CIP, probably 90% of the projects were within the first 2 years. And suddenly it was like, well, we're doing nothing the last 4 years. And we know that just can't take place. So staff does a really good job now of making sure these projects are indeed spread out over those 6 years based on priority.
135%, and it's maybe it's lowest, or last year it was 86.7. Do you know? And then you do put in here that that the contribution this year, well, yeah, it is a contribution this year, will be over $738,000. Do you know what percentage that will put us at compared to the current 86.7% of what it should be funded at?
Well, do you
know what I
mean what we pay in, when we're gonna pay in?
Yeah.
No, that will,
Well, when it's funded, because this.
A lot of that depends also on our investments and how well they do.
Right, so
To
we wait
affect
until
it.
the
So we
end of the
really
year
don't
to
know.
know what that percentage
Yes.
is.
and
It's
that
not-
percentage, yeah, is actually for 15-16 is when we'll pay that 700 and some thousand.
Right, that's
Okay.
in this budget.
Right.
That,
15-16 next fiscal year.
Yeah, right, the budget
the
that's.
budget we're looking at.
Yeah.
But we don't know now what percentage that will put us at until the end of next year.
Right, for
Okay,
15,
that's why it's not.
December of this year. I turn everything in, and it's kind of strange, I turn it in after the year ends, and then she goes back and does all the,
Okay. Which
she
is
said, that's a fairly good funding, but she'd like to see us get back up to 100.
Because it is one of the priorities for if we're
Yeah.
over the 20%.
However, we are making the contributions every year. We
Right.
make what they say or request that we make. So we are funding ourselves exactly what they say we should.
Okay.
But the investments out in the field, that's what's gonna matter, and it's called a 4-year smoothing, where over 4 years, they take all the investments of those 4 years. So if you have a couple really bad years, it's gonna affect the good years. But we do have a bad year falling off, so, you were at the retirement
Yeah,
party.
so hopefully it's going to be
We
getting
know.
better, it's looking better.
It just takes some time, and
Excellent.
so normally we receive and file this one, and then we have a public hearing at the next meeting to give people a chance to comment and hopefully approve it.
Okay.
I move we receive and file.
Second.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Thank you very much for all of that work. Next up is the first reading of ordinance number 15430, an ordinance amending chapter 38, fire prevention and protection, article 1 in general, section 38.4, authority of council to permit public displays of fireworks. Chief Lorbush?
Good evening. With the passage of Public Act 256 of 2011, restrictions on many types of consumer fireworks were lifted, and regulation and licensing of fireworks was implemented. In that same year, 9,600 fireworks-related injuries were seen in U.S. hospital emergency rooms. The National Fire Protection Association reports that an average of 4 people each year are killed in fireworks-related mishaps and in fires caused by fireworks. In fact, on Independence Day in a typical year, fireworks account for 2 out of 5 of all reported fires, more than any other cause of fire. What this proposed ordinance does is it puts into place some protections because of the urban nature of our community. Unlike the surrounding area, the houses here and the businesses are very close. We have many historic buildings which are more susceptible to fire than newer construction. And because of that close proximity, we feel that it's extremely important that airborne fireworks and Chinese lanterns, which are also airborne, be prohibited to the extent possible to prevent unwanted ignition of the surrounding property. This is especially considering the close proximity and the age again. So this does a couple of things. First of all, it prohibits possession, sale, or use of Chinese lanterns. Chinese lanterns are not classified as fireworks, and what they are, in case you're not familiar, is there are these things with the burning wax in the bottom, and it blows up a big balloon, and as the balloon gets full of heated air, it rises. And at that point, as it leaves your hands, it violates section 1503.2 of our existing fire code because it becomes an uncontrolled ignition source. And it floats out over the woods and then comes down on somebody's roof or on a tree or on a bank of unexploded fireworks. This has happened twice on the 4th of July here in Alpena. And bad things can and do happen. Communities across the country are banning these specifically by ordinance, so you don't have to interpret the existing code, but technically the code already prohibits it as any uncontrolled ignition source. It also permits the use of consumer fireworks, and this is one of 2 classifications, the day before, the day of, and the day after a federal holiday between 8 a.m. and 1 a.m. That's the most restricted that we're allowed to be under the Fireworks Safety Act. We can't regulate them any more than that. But what it does is that if it is not the day before, after, or on a federal holiday between 8 a.m. and 1 a.m., they're prohibited completely. Again, consumer fireworks are the classification of fireworks that are airborne. They're the ones that just a few years ago were illegal, that you couldn't have. Bottle rockets and fountains that leave the ground and so forth. And that's where most of the danger is those kinds of fireworks. The other classification is low-impact fireworks. Low-impact fireworks are the things that always used to be legal through the years. Sparklers, fountains that stay on the ground, the little snakes, all those kinds of things that we all used as kids. And those are regulated, or those are permitted rather, year-round and are not regulated by this ordinance. This is a civil infraction, so it has civil infraction penalties. It's not a criminal offense. It goes on to add just a couple of additional prohibitions. It says that you can't ignite consumer fireworks even on the holiday without the owner of the legal representatives or legal representative express written permission. We run into that quite often where people are firing fireworks onto other people's properties and causing fires. Obviously, with the airborne ones, you don't usually shoot it at your own house, you shoot it at somebody else's house, so that becomes a problem. We specifically list that if you're under the influence of liquor or controlled substances, you probably shouldn't be using fireworks, even if it is on the holiday, and that you must be in compliance with all other applicable laws and ordinances on those permitted days. But of course, most of the days we're hoping will be prohibited. So with that, I'll turn to Bill Pfeiffer, who wrote this document, and have him do the reading.
I will summarize it unless you wish for me to read all of it. This is an ordinance that would repeal in its entirety Chapter 38, Article 1, Section 38.4, and in its place the following provisions are hereby adopted. Section 1 is a definition section, simply labels of fireworks, either consumer fireworks, low impact fireworks, things of that nature. Defines the federal holidays. Those are the holidays that are currently consistent with state law. That may change, and if it does change, then this ordinance will allow us to change with state law. So if state law, for instance, said that Columbus Day was no longer a holiday for purposes of that law, then it would no longer be a holiday for purposes of our ordinance. Section 2 is a general prohibition on either igniting, discharging, or using consumer fireworks. Section 3 is the additional prohibitions, which basically talk about not being under the influence, not discharging them onto other people's properties, things of that nature. Section 4 talks about the permit application and site plans for consumer fireworks where there's going to be a display. It requires them to essentially get a hold of bill and be in compliance, get a permit if they want to do a display. And we're not talking about the individual shooting a bottle rocket into the air. We're talking about some formal display of fireworks. Section 5 talks about the enforcement, the seizure of fireworks and the penalties that go along with it. Section 6 just says we're repealing any previous ordinances that are inconsistent with this. Section 7 is a severability section. It just says if for some reason a court struck down a portion of this, it would not strike down the whole ordinance, only the portion that's found to be non-compliant. And Section 8 is a savings clause. And this will take effect 10 days after being adopted by the municipal council and duly published. And this being only first reading, the only thing to consider for today would be whether there's any proposed changes that either needed to be made or should be made, and then would have second reading at the next meeting.
This question?
Yeah.
I understand correctly that our policy is more restricted than what the state allows?
It's consistent with state law.
Okay. So they've changed theirs a little bit, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that, Bill cited it as the Public Act 256 of 2011.
Of 2011, so nothing really new, right? Is that a year? I mean,
Yeah, it was enacted in 2011.
It's taken us a couple of years to identify what the impact of that law change has done, because prior to that, we had legal fireworks and illegal fireworks. And that law basically said it's all legal, but you can only use it in certain, two-phase attempt. Number one, we'd like to, once council has acted, until then it's just our recommendation, but once council has acted, we certainly are going to do a press release and cooperate with the media. We've got great cooperation from our media partners getting the word out there. The other thing is I'm going to be meeting with some other township officials to see if they would consider the same kind of an ordinance in their jurisdiction. And lastly, I promised two, but it was actually three. I'm planning on approaching at least one and maybe a couple of the local merchants who have been very cooperative and very interested in public safety and maybe willing to voluntarily help us. I don't think they know they're dangerous.
Is there any way that the fire department can help enforce this, or is that going to fall on the police pretty strictly?
That's a really good question. It's specifically written so that the fire chief or his designee or any sworn law enforcement officer could enforce the ordinance. because it is too big a job for just the 2 or 3 officers that are on duty at any one time.
Thank you.
Explain to me, I guess, because I just since 2011, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but when the state changed their law as far as what was illegal and what was illegal, were we completely in the same? Did we have the same? We didn't do anything in Alpena. We just let the law of the state. Because I don't specifically know, I guess I didn't have time over the weekend to read the article or the ordinance that this was replacing. So but I was always in the last couple of years under the impression that we fell under pretty much the same laws as the state. And I thought that it was legal to fire fireworks on your own premises the day before, the day of, and the day after. But that's not the case.
No, that is the case.
That's a state law, right?
Under prior state law, prior to 2011, it was legal to use certain fireworks, which we would now call low impact.
Right, those,
anytime you want.
Yeah.
And it was extremely common and continues to be extremely common to use what we would now call consumer fireworks all year round.
Right.
But those things that we now call consumer were never legal. They were always brought in from Indiana and Ohio and wherever people could get them.
Exactly.
The good stuff, so to speak.
Sure.
Now the good stuff can be sold in Michigan, but it can only be used right around the holiday or whenever else you would like if it's permitted by the local community. But the more that they're used, the more danger that we have to our structures and citizens.
Okay, because what you just said was what I was asking. So the state says that I'm still a little late, but the state says that you can use them the day before, the day of, and the day after the list of holidays. But if the city said you could use them all year round, you could? Or if the city didn't tell you you couldn't, you could?
Right.
But now we're finally saying that now you can't, because
Right.
now it's more in keeping with the state.
Right. Prior to 2011, you could never use them.
I understand.
After 2011, you can use them unless it's regulated by the city, but the city is not permitted to regulate them on day
Those
after,
particular
and day
days.
before.
I understand.
So we're banning them except when we can't ban them.
Okay. And then I guess, and then I'll let you guys say what you want to, because this is the point as to whether we change this before our next meeting or not. I'm just not a huge fan of it, and I'll tell you why, and you can answer to it either tonight or we can talk privately about it before our next meeting. But my biggest concerns with both of your departments, and Joel is in the back, is that we're about to have an ordinance that I just don't feel that we'll be able to do much with. And so if you get complaints now, and I get complaints, it's fine. It's what I was elected for. It's like, hey, it's 5 days after the 4th of July, and my neighbor apparently spent too much money on fireworks, so he's still shooting them off. But there's very little I feel that can be done, because by the time it goes in the air and your departments get there, it's already gone. And so I'll say, well, there's really no particular ordinance that says that he can't fire them off. Up until this point, it hasn't been. But now saying that, now they'll be able to say, yeah, but you passed an ordinance saying that it's illegal, so get somebody over here or get somebody over to that place or this place. But I'm never comfortable with ordinances that I don't feel comfortable that your departments can enforce. And I'm just not so sure that this isn't really enforceable. And I don't know if you want to speak to that now, or...
I will, because I did talk to him, and then Bill and Joel or whatever can chime in. But we have other ordinances that work much the same way. Noise ordinance is a perfect example. I mean, you could get a complaint, but you really have to be there and witness the violation in order to do anything. I don't think we should, because it is a difficult ordinance to enforce, is that we say, well, we won't have it and anything goes. There are still those instances when you can, somebody does get there, they witness it, and what they become, as much as anything, is an example, is that then they've been cited, and others know that if they are caught, they are going to be cited. Even with some of the other, where we enforce, do various code enforcement and other things. Sometimes they're difficult ones to enforce, but in our opinion, they need to be there. Because I don't think we can just say, carte blanche. And I think this is the same way. Yes, is it going to be hard at times? But there are going to be those occasions. I think things like, as example, the Chinese lanterns, those, you'll be surprising how easy, because I talk to people, and I know a number of the fire did, and I believe the police did too, over the 4th of July weekend, when you're waiting for hours and you're seeing people setting these things off. It'll be very easy to see that and to do that. Some will get caught, some won't. But I think just to say, well, it's difficult, therefore we will not have any kind of enforcement, then you've got those who are launching those types of things, and we've already had them land in trees, on house roofs, in the city. And we know they're not always launched from within the city, but that's the trouble with those, you can't control them. They could go up and come down in 100 feet, or they could travel for several miles before they come down. And if you've got weather like you do today, right now, where you got very high fire, major fires in Alpena County, south of Barton City that occurred yesterday, it doesn't take much to start a fire. So we feel that despite the fact that it can be difficult to enforce, that it's important to have it on the books.
Okay. And anything to add?
Well, really, I mean, I couldn't put it any clearer than Greg just put it. Whether it be speeders, and we can't get all the speeders, but we do enforce speeding, for example. What this simply does is with the change back in 2011, it was a free-for-all, and it was 365. There was, even though the state, it said, I just went blank here, but it said MCL, which is Michigan Compiled Law, allows the local units of government to enact an ordinance, which is what we're trying to do here tonight, regulating the ignition, discharge, and use of consumer fireworks. However, an ordinance enacted shall not regulate the use, and it goes on, and it basically says that we can, fireworks are only going to be legal the listed holidays, the day before and the day after. And without the ordinance, we're back to a free-for-all again, 365, 24/7. And that's what we've run into, the 2 weeks after or the 3 weeks before the 4th of July, when people start popping them off in preparation for the ones that got left over at 4 o'clock in the morning type of thing. And we had no teeth. We had nothing we could do except try to be a considerate neighbor. And sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. So this at least gives us the ability to regulate. And like Greg said, sometimes it's a example. We worked the 4th of July, we're walking the beach down there. We got people throwing M80s and kids are 5 feet away, and it's just, we're fortunate we haven't had somebody really hurt.
Well, and the issue I have with that, I guess just to speak on that a little bit, the issue I have with that is that's city property. From my knowledge, it's never been legal at any time to launch fireworks from city property. So when you're at the fireworks and we're all confined on the beach and whatnot, it's my understanding that it was never legal, because that's city property. You're no longer on your own private property. I don't know if that's the case.
But prior to 2011, anything like that was illegal, period.
Prior to 2011, right.
And then after that, we had people showing up with coolers full of this stuff. I mean, we did in the past before, but we had options. And after 2011, it was, don't like that down here, okay. And sometimes we're walking away and they go off.
And a lot of them are not on city property, they're on private property. Might be their own, it might not be, and do they have permission to do it? We don't know. But it just becomes that much more difficult.
We have the opportunity to regulate it. We can choose to regulate it or not to regulate it. But if we choose not to regulate it, we do so with our eyes open, knowing that the facts are there to prove that they do cause fires. They do burn houses down. They do hurt people. And we can regulate them, or we can just...
In my neighborhood, you're welcome to come and visit with me any time after dark, and I assure you, it'll be worth your time. But I'm always concerned about humans first. Of course I am. But you can imagine, I'm sure, what it's like to have dogs who have jumped the fence, terrified, in the street, going in everybody's yard. It is really hard for animal owners to keep their pets calm with all that going on. And generally, it's the same neighborhoods every year. Every year. It's the same neighborhoods and probably the same people. So I mean, at what point do you just say, okay, we're not going to bed until 5 o'clock in the morning? I don't see how that is not an infringement on my right. I
We
don't.
agree. We agree.
And I agree, and don't get me wrong, and I guess, I just want to, it's just, from my perspective, I am certainly not a fan of over-ordinancing ourselves.
Right.
And I guess here's my only perspective on that, is that after 10 o'clock, 4 days after the 4th of July, you're now violating a noise ordinance that we already have. Whether it's fireworks or not, if you light one off and it goes bang, you violated the noise ordinance. So whether Joel's team comes, am I wrong? If Joel's team comes because you violated the noise ordinance, or does it not violate the noise ordinance to fire off firecrackers at 10 at night?
It's been argued both ways.
There's a certain DVA level that you gotta prove, and then if it's in a house, it's gotta be audible from a distance of at least 50 feet. So a lot of times, our officers will get calls, loud stereo, they get close enough, and it's almost like these people have radar. I'm sure some of them have scanners, and they know to turn it down. Officers leave, half hour later, they get a call again. Neighbors complaining. It's loud, I can hear it right now. By the time the officer gets there, it's down again. You know, do that 2, 3, 4 times a night sometimes, until they finally get there quick enough, or wait there until the call comes again. And so that they get within 50 feet and they can cite the person for it. So, you know, it's gotta be audible from at least 50 feet, and then there's certain decibel levels too. So, I guess, could it be a violation? Yes, depending upon what type of firework it was. Obviously, you know, I'm not as familiar with them as these guys, but I'm assuming an M80 is loud enough to violate the noise ordinance.
So, and the other issue I have is with the lanterns. I'm not a fan of the lanterns. I've spoken with Chief Forbush when different organizations want to light up 50 of them, or however many. We've talked about the wind and things of that nature. I'm not a huge fan of them. I am a little bit apprehensive about the ordinance. Says that I can't even keep one in my home. And as odd as it sounds, is that I'm going to pass an ordinance that's, and I don't have one, but let's just say I had one. Let's just say I had one for any purpose, and I have it in my home and it's on the dining room table, and Joel comes by just to say hello. He can fine me with an infraction for $500 the way that this is written if it's sitting on my table. It's not an illegal device. I don't have a problem with saying you can't light them and send them off into the atmosphere, and I invite you to please ask the township to do something similar. But as far as selling something that's legal, or me having something that's legal in my home, our ordinance is saying that I can't do either, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that either.
Well, I would say if we pass the ordinance, it's not legal, because we've said it isn't, to shoot the, you know, to light them, or to even sell them, if that's what we say.
Or to have it.
Or to have it, any of those three. Now, if we change it, fine. Whatever it says is prohibited is, in essence, is then an illegal act to do that. We certainly, at least from staff, would say the use it should be illegal. The sale, the reason being, and I know it's within the city, and if you don't, you know, you can go buy it at Walmart, and it's outside the city, and there's nothing we can do. But if we're saying it's illegal to use it in the city, but we are allowing people to sell them within the city, it's sending, to me, a mixed signal. The possession thing, you know, maybe that's something that's different, because yes, you could buy it from Walmart, have it home, because I'm gonna take it to, we have a house on the lake, and I'm gonna put it there, and it'll probably drift over the city and land on us anyways. Which, you know, we can't do anything about, and so be it. But, you know, I understand that one probably a little more, but I think as far as the selling, and certainly the use of them within the city, it needs to start somewhere. We know many of them that fly over the city, even land in the city, don't start there. But, you know, we're only one jurisdiction, and so we need to start somewhere. If we pass it, maybe some other communities will do likewise.
We're the only jurisdiction in the area with a full-time fire prevention bureau, with the staff and the resources to take a leadership role in these areas. Outside the city limits, almost all of fire safety is completely unregulated, and that's a shame for those citizens. But here in the city of Alpena, that's not the case. So we're trying to take a leadership role and hope that others will follow us.
I think it's correct. I do, with there again, with the lighting of them, we were all there, well, most of us, when that one got caught in the power lines just last year. Kind of freaked me out a little bit. When you see 30 of them go up, you kind of wonder where they're gonna go. The theory is that they won't come down till they go out, but we know that doesn't always happen. I really don't have a problem with that either. It's just that, I guess I'll struggle a bit with, and I personally, I would like to, I'm not so sure I'm ready to ban the sale and possession of them, only because because it's still okay in the township, it's still okay in the county, and it's still okay just about anywhere else in the state, and I get that, and I understand the leadership and taking the first thing, which would be to ban the use of them. I would be more comfortable with that than to say that someone right across the street with a retail store, right across the street from one that can sell it and one that can't, we're regulating, we're just saying that, you know, someone passing through isn't, I mean, and I'm sure that it's not I mean, what are they, 99 cents? I don't know. But I mean, it's not a huge impact. I'm just not sure if I'm comfortable saying that you can't sell them or possess them until maybe a wider range of Northeast Michigan bans the use of them altogether. I'm just not sure if I'm ready to.
Actually, across the state, a number of communities are doing so. Often by a specific ordinance. In fact, this ordinance was fashioned after similar ordinances in other jurisdictions. But as I mentioned earlier, and I just want to recap, an uncontrolled ignition source is already against the code in virtually all of Michigan. And so it could be enforced under the existing fire code. It's not really a change. What we're trying to do is, instead of pulling out some obscure code book that nobody's ever seen except us, we're saying, this is the simple part. You can't have that. And it just doesn't make sense to me that we would permit stores to sell them if you can't use them. That seems like it sends a heck of a bad message. Now, I'm hoping that some of the retailers will be cooperative, even if they aren't in the city. And I'm confident that we'll have some degree of voluntary cooperation. But I think it does send the wrong message, in my opinion anyway, that you can go to the store and buy one, but don't you dare light it. That seems strange.
I agree. Yeah. Furthermore, you know, the officers, practice discretion on a daily basis. And, you know, they're very reasonable. So if we get a family coming from downstate or out here, where it may be, and they say, well, we didn't know we'd have it. You know, the officers are more likely going to say, you can't, put it away, take it back downstate, we do whatever else. So nobody's looking to over-enforce anything. That's never been our practice, never will be.
Absolutely not.
We're just trying to keep the community safe. That's why we're charging public safety.
Is the possession part included for scenarios such as, you come across a car of people and they have them in the car, where it looks like there's going to be an intent to use it? Maybe you could explain, or maybe could you answer to why it's important to make it illegal to actually possess them?
Go ahead, Bill.
You get a complaint that the people are releasing these Chinese lanterns. And as you drive up, you can see 3 or 4 of them flying up through the sky. And you pull up and they say, I'm not going to use that pile of lanterns. Who said I didn't do any such thing? If you can't have them, then it really doesn't matter if you meant to do that or not. Obviously you did, but it gives you a heck of a loophole. You know, who's to say I was going to like that? It's just pretty. It looks nice in my trunk. You know, it kind of closes the loophole a little bit.
And we run across that all the time. I mean, again,
I'm sure you do.
We'll walk among people and
just
say,
sit
oh, yeah,
there.
we just saw it laying there. It's not ours, type of thing. So then you won't mind if we take it, then will you? If it's not yours. So, and again, it's discretion. It's with the officer's observations. You know, a lot of times people come up and say, oh yeah, it was like a
couple of years, that this kind of gives the citizens in Alpena knowledge that we hear them and that we're trying to do something about it to protect them. And I do agree with Susan with the animals. During the time that these things are going off, before, during, after, we have had more animals loose, lost, running. I mean, this just makes them crazy. So it's not safe for them either. So I agree with this 100%.
Well, in my opinion, and I'll qualify it as such, but this was meant to be a gold mine for the state revenues. I mean, they passed this for licensing all the businesses that want to come and sell these things, and whether it panned out for them, I don't know, but it cost a lot of communities a lot of heartache. And I think the state was looking that they were going to get a lot of money, and maybe they did, but we paid for it. So.
Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate your explanations for all my questions and oddities. Thanks. Katie.
Karen, did you say there'll be a public hearing as part of that process next meeting?
Not for this.
No,
No.
just,
Just the budget.
yeah, this will just be second reading and then a vote. I suppose they could still recommend changes.
You could.
Which could still be done prior to the vote, if there were to be any. And you could vote on those, and then they either get added or not. And then take a final vote on any amended.
Are you recommending any changes, Mr. Mayor? You seem like you had some concerns.
All right. I appreciate the explanation, especially the possession of it. Obviously not thinking that they're just gonna scour around the neighborhood and notice someone
You're
sitting there.
tired.
I'm still not comfortable with not being able to sell something that's legal, you know, in enough areas where it's legal, but that's just me. That's just, I don't even know how many retailers that might even affect, to be honest with you, because I just got this on Friday, so I don't know, I could maybe give it some thought. Maybe there isn't even a place in the city of Alpena that's selling them. I'm not really sure. No idea.
Couple of dollar stores.
Couple of dollar stores, so, yeah, still.
I would assume those.
Yeah.
But all around us in the township, they sell them like crazy.
So, yeah,
Needles. Even.
That's okay, that's what we're here for. That's why they're 5 and not just 1.
You know, and just to clarify my concern for the animals, I don't believe animals are more important than people. But a frightened dog is a pretty big danger to other people. I mean, there's a good chance
Yeah.
that somebody could get hurt just from a frightened dog.
And there's nothing wrong with including animals, even if they're not.
No, I
humans.
don't think so.
So with that.
don't have to do anything.
And then just
I
say
guess
that-
I'm all alone in mine. That's okay.
You still have next meeting.
I mean,
Try
yeah,
to
if
persuade
anything,
them.
to include sparklers with them, because I think emergency room records would probably show that sparklers cause more injuries than most fireworks.
Bottle rockets, yes, that was the last statistics we had.
That's okay. We don't even need a receipt and file on that, then?
No.
Nothing? Okay, thank you. And thanks again, chiefs, I appreciate it. Communications and petitions, we have Chiefs Bar and Grill.
Okay.
I received an email from Dennis Mayo on April 20th, from Chiefs Bar and Grill. He says they're planning a summer activities and would like to request permission from the great city of Alpena to be able to block Lake Street from the North 2nd Avenue to the back of our bar. It's about 70 feet. With a noise variance until midnight on Saturday, June 6th and 13th for our charity events. We would also ask permission to block the street from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. on Wednesday evenings from June 10th through August 12th, so we can have a summer beanbag cornhole league. And then I went out to the department heads, and there were, the noise variance we've done before for charities for him. So that really wasn't a problem, and we haven't had any complaints that I know of about it. But the Wednesday evening league was a problem in blocking off the streets, and I don't think any of them recommended it. Jeff did say give it a try, so.
That's because he's in the league.
Now, Karen, in the past, Denny gave us signatures, people in the neighborhood that were okay with the noise ordinance. Did we receive anything
Not this year.
with that as far as the beanbag thing? or
No,
not?
neither one.
And it was almost a month?
It's June.
June to August. It's
June
for 3
through
months.
August, yeah.
Every Wednesday for 3 months. And that's when I think when most of the staff looked at it, that was rather excessive to be blocking off the in the middle of a week too. Usually most of the charity events, they're on a weekend. They occur once or twice a year. People, accept that for a night or whatever. But here we're looking at every Wednesday for basically about 12 weeks or more, and it's in the middle of the week. So you have this activity occurring in front, and it's from 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock. So we just felt that was perhaps asking a little too much, at least most of the staff. And we bringing it to council because obviously you can have a different opinion, which is you're right, but it is something new. This was not the usual request that we've gotten every year, whether from them or others. So we felt in that case we should bring it to you for your review and action.
And just to clarify, you don't need review and action specifically on the 2 dates of his charity event for the noise ordinance?
We do need a variance. Yeah, you need to approve it.
Oh, because that's a noise.
So you need that as well.
We would have brought that to you.
Oh, you would have brought that?
Yes, I did forget. So many of these
But
events, they don't
normally that would
include
be,
noise
I don't even know if that would be
variance,
a
but this
consent
does.
agenda thing or something. I
Yeah,
guess
we
just-
usually do that.
Yeah, I'm completely comfortable with his charity events. Chiefs and Denny do a ton of great things for the community. I have no issues, and to my knowledge, we don't have a lot of complaints about his past activities,
Joel,
specifically
you said
on
we didn't,
dates.
so, no.
No?
Do we want to address that one?
Do you want to do them separately?
Yeah.
Let's just do them separately. Does anybody, unless you have any dispute, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2 Saturdays in June for the noise variance.
So moved.
Second.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye. And the second one, I guess, just as brief as possible, I would have to agree with staff. We were all given their comments, and I thought they all had merit, all of them. Yours too? Yeah. And I spoke with a couple of our enforcement agencies as far as that goes, and I'd have to agree with them. I think it's maybe just stepping outside of our of what we should do, not only for the citizens that travel that road, but the several days, and then Adam made a good point, obviously, as far as that league could spread out to several other places in town, and then it would be difficult to say that Chiefs can do it, but Latitudes can't, or any other establishment, single out Latitudes, but, so I would just as soon not approve that portion.
Hopefully that they could look at either, I don't know, that they have room on their property, parking lot, whatever, or else looking at something that's off of the right of way.
I think they probably will. I mean, it's pretty popular.
And do that. I know it might be away from their bar, which, their intent is that they're gonna also have their business, which creates another whole thing that every Wednesday now we've got people, utilizing, drinking alcohol, playing these games out in the street and so forth. And it's occurring every week, so.
I would be more inclined if it was maybe a tournament over a weekend.
Right.
Something with a smaller imprint in that neighborhood.
Very similar to the charity events. If they did something like that.
Exactly.
Maybe we can work something out in the future there, but that's a lot to give.
Did you have something brief?
I'm just representing from Chiefs, I'm the manager, so.
Okay.
I was actually curiosity, if we were to change.
Sir, could you come up to the podium and state your name and address, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Mayo, I am the manager of Chiefs, I'm actually Denny's son, and unfortunately he can't be here tonight, so I'm representing the business. So, what we're looking to do, I mean, it is a business. We just thought there's sometimes it is slow. A lot of people look for things on the weekdays to do that aren't available. During the school year or during the winters, we have pool leagues and dart leagues that bring people out. During summertime, weekends, they're camping, they're on the lake, they're enjoying the beautiful air we have around here. But on the weekdays, we do get a lot of requests of stuff to do during the daytime. That 6 to 10 o'clock when there's not really much to do during the summertime. You gotta work, you're looking for some kind of entertainment, you don't wanna just go sit around because it's too nice out. But at the same time, you're only gonna walk the beach, go for a bicycle ride so many times a week before you're kind of bored doing the same thing over and over. So that was our whole point, just trying to offer something new for the community. And we knew closing on the street is gonna be an inconvenience for the people living around there. Talking with a few of the people that are just regulars, they come in, they say hi quite often. They're excited with the idea of it. Idealistically, I'd love to be able to have the parking across the street, which is behind Gino's Pizza and the new smoke shop, and use that property and not shut down the street. But I don't think with law you could be able to take drinks across the street like that without shutting down. Yeah, so that was kind of not an option, unfortunately. So if it's not approved to, I would like to, because we're allowed 12 per year throughout the state. I've also been approached Friday by the Bike Coalition and about doing another event in September, or end of September, first part of October, for a charity for Toys for Kids. Do a kind of a fall, so it'll be more Toys for Kids, Feed a Family, kind of lean more into the Feed a Family aspect of it for by Thanksgiving. So if we can maybe adjust a date there, if this is go through for Wednesdays, then we may apply one of the dates to that. I'd appreciate that too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming. I guess my only recommendation for you before you go is that if you want to try and adjust maybe some different ideas and stuff, contact, I guess it would be, I always push people out to other people, but it's my thing. Either talk to the police chief or Don Gilman, ordinance guy, and just to make sure that by the time it gets to us, we've got their recommendation as well. It just makes it easier for us. But definitely appreciate everything you guys do for the community.
Thank you very much.
It's good stuff.
So we need a
Need a motion on the second part.
denied request for what?
Do it positive. It's better.
So you want to make a motion to?
I would say to do it the positive, so that if you vote no, you're against it, rather than voting yes to say no.
So
That's always confusing.
So I'll make that motion, so moved.
I'm not sure what it was.
It was so moved something.
Yeah,
It was a motion to approve.
It would be a motion to approve the Wednesday night,
Right.
his request. For
Right. Be
We
bad.
are approving it?
That's
No,
the
no,
motion.
no.
That's the motion.
Trust me,
It deserves a
It'll
vote.
work, yes.
Appreciate a second. Give us
Second.
Sorry.
Call the roll, please. Any other discussion?
Nielsen?
No.
Nowak?
No.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
No.
Johnson?
No.
You're good? Thank you.
That's-
Next up, Families Against Narcotics. Don Woolman? Woodham, I'm sorry.
Busting out the shirt, all right.
Well, my name's Don Woodham, and I represent Families Against Narcotics, and stands for FAN. FAN's an organization that we're trying to move into Alpena, and it looks like this organization will be starting on July 1st. The chapter will be starting. We have enough people in place to, we have a board formed, some advisory board members. We're still looking for a secretary and a treasurer. So that's really what we're really trying to get done right now, but that doesn't have to be in place right now to start the chapter. FAN is an organization that really has a passion to help the community with support against addiction from narcotics. Obviously, everybody in the community is affected by this disease, whether it's the addict alcoholic, obviously, or their wife, their kids, their parents, their neighbors, their co-workers. There's a support system that FAN tries to get involved, tries to get everybody involved with. Now there will be family forums once a month, and at them forums there is different groups that will be set up. One for like nurses, doctors, psychiatrists, stuff like that, and a doctor in town here that's on board will take care of that. I myself, along with a couple other recovery coaches, will be taking on the helping out the addicts and alcoholics in the recovery field, whether it be 12-step work, a lot of spiritual work. There also is going to hopefully be a spiritual advisor. That was another one besides secretary and treasurer. We're trying to find someone in town, whether they be clergy or just a good spiritual mentor that could help out in that way. Families who have lost a child due to addiction or are battling one out there now that that looks hopeless. We try to provide support with that. We're going to try to start some good groups in Alpena because I am myself am a recovering addict and alcoholic, and there is good groups here, but I believe we can do a lot better. A lot of the groups are mainly focused on the meetings and the fellowship, and we're trying to bring it back to basics, actually focusing on the true hope of the program, which is the steps and the spiritual principles behind the steps. So it's a great organization. It's done very well in other counties across Michigan. The drug court is getting behind this. I met with them last week, and Judge LaCrosse is actually speaking with the executive director out of Ingham County right now to try to, get everything tied up. And every other county too that Fana is working with the drug court, their success rate has rose, and budgets also has rose for drug court. So I think it's a great opportunity for Alpena to get involved. Kind of like how Alpena kind of got involved with the synthetic drugs. They formed a board and everybody got on board to fight against that. Kind of even before I think it was a state law. And if we can have that same type of group formed, all year round, 365 days a year, I think it would be, it's greatly needed. So I know it helped save my life, and I went to Chippewa County up in the Sioux where I was introduced with FAN, and I really want to do all I can to help start one here. So.
Awesome. I think it's great. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but before you do leave, if you want to throw out some contact information for our local viewers and anyone else that might want to.
Yeah, if anybody would like to know anything else about FAN, they can go to www.familiesagainstnarcotics.org. Also, they can give me a call at 989-657-0758.
Excellent.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, no unfinished business. We have new business, approval of the contract with Northeast Michigan Council of Governments, or NEMCOG, to assist in the City of Alpena's update to the city recreation plan.
All right, I'll give the abbreviated versions for the sake of time. If you have any questions, let me know. MDNR requires that we have a rec plan, and we update that every 5 years. So in order to get these DNR grants, for instance, for the trailhead and Starlight Beach that we've gotten in the past that have been very helpful, we have to have an updated rec plan. Our rec plan is due to expire at the end of the year. In the past, we have worked with NEMCOG, which we are a member of the Council of Governments. I'm the representative. They have prepared it in the past. They've done a great job, and they give us a discount, which is always helpful. So they're willing to do it again. Staff did approach them. They came back with a contract. That contract is to update the rec plan. That includes an online survey, which we could do it a number of ways. But the online survey that gets the best results as far as citizen participation, as well as a number of other things such as printing, meetings with staff, that kind of thing. That contract is for $6,000, which is what we have budgeted for the update. So we would like the permission from the council to execute this contract and start the process of the update process.
I have one question, and that's remind us again, who works with them? What city committee or council is charged with actually updating the recreation plan?
It's actually the recreation board, okay. And then a number from our planning commission as well. And we try to make the hearing process as public as possible. We try to get as many people involved as we can.
Great. Yeah, and I saw some stuff in there.
From people such as yourself, you get involved.
Are we talking to me or after?
Oh, you, of course, sir.
Sorry.
You got to do it.
Motion to approve the contract, right? Or
So
to,
moved.
move?
Oh, I thought you were asking.
No,
for
I
it.
just.
I'm sorry, I'll wait.
No, it's fine.
You can keep talking.
Motion to approve the contract, did you need something else?
Authorization for, but who signs it, the mayor? It doesn't say.
Well, yeah, I'm cool with the mayor, that makes sense. They just have name, so.
Okay, Nielsen was the motion.
Yes,
So-
second.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora? Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Thank you, Adam. And last up, fireworks contract.
This is Bob Avery, who's heading up this project for the department this year. And we have a little bit of an unusual request for you. I think we've done this before, and given the public safety perspective of it, I'm hoping that you will allow us to do it again. As we prepare for the 4th of July fireworks, the city becomes the sponsor of the fireworks for liability purposes and licensing purposes. It requires a Coast Guard license, a DNR license, or approval, and we have to have a vendor to work with. Now, we've had a number of vendors through the years, and the one that has done the show the last few years, Wolverine Fireworks, has done an excellent job. They've worked on all of the safety requirements and complied with all of them. They've worked hand in hand with police and fire. We have no problem working with them whatsoever. Prior to that, we skipped around a little bit, I think based on whatever, low bid, whatever the case may be. But every time that we varied from that, we ended up with problems and non-compliant shows and accidents and fires and bad things happen. Wasn't good. So what we would like to do is our 3-year contract with Wolverine ran out at the end of last year. Rather than find another vendor, we would like to simply do another 3-year contract with Wolverine, because if we get the wrong vendor, there is a tremendous risk. This pyrotechnic team has been here for the last 3 years, I think longer than that. They've been doing the show from our location. They know exactly what to do. They know exactly what our rules are, and we don't risk something bad happening. A fireworks accident in commercial fireworks like this could literally, kill people and injure hundreds of people at the park. We can't risk that. It's not worth the risk, especially since we don't even spend the money on it. The only reason we can't give them a contract just to give it to them is Council Policy 18, but since there's no city money involved in it, it doesn't seem like that's applicable. All of the money for the show is brought together by fundraising efforts from the Chamber of Commerce, as we're all aware. So attached to my memo is a couple of page contract from Wolverine that we're proposing. Note that the final budget for the year is based on the total amount raised by the Chamber, so we're not held accountable to the number that you see on the page unless we raise that much. If we don't raise that much, it'll simply be a smaller show. A $10,000 show, a $15,000 show, whatever the case is, but we're not on the hook for it. And the other concern, of course, is that if we don't do that, we've got to find another vendor, and it's getting a little late already. So I'm hoping that we can work together and just extend these folks and have the show go off without a hitch. Now, Bob has been working with the Coast Guard and the DNR and so forth and setting up perimeters. I know he had a conversation with the Coast Guard today. Could you share that?
Yes, in the last 2 weeks since I took over, just came, I have the fireworks.
I know.
I
should have waited.
I think Craig had a oh no moment when we realized that this contract was over after last year, and we're already almost into the summer months and no contract has been put forth yet. So just to give you an idea of the volume of fireworks that are down there, I was going through this. The grand finale last year was 1,300 fireworks between 2.5 and 5 inches in diameter. And looking at the poundage of explosives that are there is in the neighborhood of 1,000 pounds of explosives that are down there on the beach for that whole day. So having a decent company that has a track record with us of safety is paramount. We have had accidents down there in the past with explosions on the ground, and the potential for loss of life was huge. One of the things I found out in the last day or two is we have to license ourselves to have that event, because we are a municipality here. We have to license, or we have to permit anybody who wants to have a fireworks display, so we have to permit ourselves to have the display. And just, it's been a real learning curve for myself. And Dave Robbins did stop down a couple days ago and offered to help if I had any questions. So moving forward, I think we're getting our ducks in a row. We do have the Coast Guard on board, and the DNR officer said they would provide a boat. The Sheriff's Department said they would provide a boat. The DPW, they've been doing this for many years. They've got their stuff in order. And the city police and the state police and the Sheriff's Department for traffic control, they all kind of know what's been going on for years, and they will provide help as best they can. So hopefully it is a good, successful for it this year.
Awesome. Thanks for great work. You don't have an issue with?
USA.
I do not.
Pretty easy.
I move we approve the contract with Wolverine.
Second.
Sexton?
Yes.
Waldor?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Thank you.
You are watching All About Alpena.